Hi everyone. Bonanza is in the shop for the annual inspection right now. It's in Vinton, Iowa, where Mike is taking good care of her. So I can't record any flights right now. Instead, what I'll do today is share with you my experience with a few nice products and services which I use in my flying a lot and which I really like. And to be clear, these are not companies who sponsor me. These are products I like. The companies have not even seen this video before it got released, and hope that these products will help improve your flying just like they have improved my flying. So I call it the 5-star reviews. Here we go. First on the list is an oxygen concentrator. It's the Inogen G5, designed as a medical device, but it turns out this thing can be really useful for flying as well. As a pilot, you know that supplemental oxygen is required by regulations above certain altitudes, and traditionally, that supplemental oxygen comes from an oxygen bottle. That works pretty well as long as there is oxygen left in the bottle, but once it's all consumed, you'll have to refill it. And that can be inconvenient or pricey, or both. With this oxygen concentrator, there's no bottle to fill. The way it works is the device takes air from the cabin and filters out the nitrogen. What's left is mostly oxygen, and you can breathe that in flight with a cannula. No different from bottled oxygen. Now, because of how they work, oxygen concentrators are not great when you fly really high. That's because there isn't enough air there to begin with, and even after separating the oxygen from the nitrogen, the oxygen simply isn't enough. That's when you still need to use a bottle. But for flights from 8,000 to say 16,000 feet, this device is a miracle. It keeps my blood oxygen level in the mid-90s, as high as 15,000 feet. With a Y adapter, 2 people can be supplied oxygen, and while I haven't tried that yet myself, I've heard from other pilots that this does work at least at slightly lower altitudes like 14,000 feet. If you need oxygen for more than 2 people, then you're probably better off with a bottle. Or you can buy multiple concentrators. You can plug the Inogen G5 into the cigarette lighter on the plane, and I use it routinely at 8,000 feet and above. The extra oxygen eliminates headaches and makes me arrive less tired after a long day of flying. And it works by flipping a switch, with no bottles to refill. I paid about $2,000 for mine, plus a couple of $100 for the transformer for the 28-volt electrical system in my Bonanza. It's a game changer for me because I no longer think about whether it's worth using oxygen on a given flight. I just use it all the time. Therefore, 5 stars for the Inogen G5. Alright, for this next item here, let's get back into my car, because that's where I listen to podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Car Talk on National Public
Yes,
Radio.
Car Talk. That was my favorite radio show for a long time. But of course, they stopped making new episodes several years ago. So, what do I listen to these days? Well, here it is.
This is Opposing Bases Air Traffic Talk. Your hosts, Romeo Hotel and Alpha Golf, have a combined 40 years of aviation experience as pilots and air traffic controllers.
This is a podcast called Opposing Bases, and the 2 hosts, they go by the ATC initials AG and RH, are both air traffic controllers and also pilots, so they understand both sides of the game.
All right, this week's show topic is brought to us by patron Juliet Papa Mike. The plan was to take off from our home class Delta Airport, fly a few approaches at a series of towered and untowered airports before proceeding home. Reminder, this was an actual IMC. My instructor and I struggled on how to build our flight plan, given we were planning on doing a few missed approaches and holds as part of this practice. We filed our first destination and listed our next destination as an alternate. All right, pause. The alternate field that you file on your flight plan is not seen by air traffic. And even if you did have to go missed in no radio conditions, it would be very difficult for us to get that information from flight service, if not impossible. So that's a very creative way to try to file, but it would be extremely confusing for the controllers and we would have no idea what was going on. That doesn't really make sense to us from a practical application standpoint on ATC. How do we do this? I said the answer depends. If you stayed on the same airspace all day, filing a flight plan from A to B to C to D and then to E, or fifth airport, would have worked. If you're leaving the airspace, filing a separate flight plan to come back would be helpful, but not necessary. And that was what AG was just saying. If you went from Duke to Triad, as soon as you land in Triad or fall off the radar, it's gone. So going back...
If you want to know more about how air traffic control works and how pilots and ATC can work together more easily, then this podcast is a great way to get there. It's easy to see AG and RH have fun doing this, and that makes it fun and entertaining to listen for us too. It's a great show, whether you're a student pilot and afraid the push-to-talk switch might bite you, or an experienced instrument-rated pilot. Either way, you'll probably learn something valuable from each episode. The price is right too. Listening to this podcast doesn't cost anything. You can do it on the web or on your smartphone using a podcast app. That's what I do in the car. Thank you, RH and AG, for doing this week after week. Another well-deserved 5-star review for Opposing Bases. For years, I thought the free weather uplink through ADS-B in and the paid XM weather subscription were more or less identical, just packaged differently. And then one day I started using XM because I wanted to see the difference for myself, because friends had suggested that it's worth the money. And now, after a year of flying with SiriusXM, I agree, it really is better. And don't get me wrong, the free weather uplink through ADS-B was already a game changer compared with the old days, back when we called a flight service station over the radio to get a resemblance of an idea of what the weather might be doing. That was okay for METARs and TAFs, but a radar image? Almost impossible. So yes, ADS-B and FIS-B were, and still are, quite valuable. But for a little extra money, you can have better. SiriusXM has some of the same things FIS-B has, like METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, and weather radar images. But FIS-B provides high-resolution radar only for a small area around you, updated every 5 minutes. Everything further away is updated less often, and very coarse and blocky. XM has the full resolution for the whole country, updated every 2.5 minutes. Why is that important? Well, because knowing which direction an area of bad weather is moving and at what speed can help make a decision early on when I'm still far away on which way I want to divert and minimize the extra flying time. Is that storm still building or starting to dissipate? It's very hard to tell with the FIS-B continental US radar, and relatively easy to recognize with the high resolution and fast update frequency from SiriusXM. I also like to see echo tops. That is, how high are the storm cells, and that in turn tells me something about the severity of the storm and the predicted direction and speed of movement. There's really good icing information too, and also a surface analysis chart with a live depiction of pressure areas and fronts. You can get SiriusXM in a variety of ways. I have purchased a portable device, the Garmin GDL52. That way, I can take the device and my weather subscription with me when I teach in a student-owned airplane. And of course, you can also feed XM music to your intercom or headset to make these long cross-country flights more enjoyable. I give 5 stars to SiriusXM Aviation Weather. There are a lot of sources of online learning available, and many of them are promising to help you pass the practical test or a written test for some certificate or rating. But you know the saying, license to learn. So today I'd like to share with you the IFR Mastery program from PilotWorkshops.
Today's mission is personal. You, your spouse, and another couple plan to spend several days touring wineries in the Napa of the Northwest. At least the first part of today's flight from Aurora State, Oregon to Walla Walla, Washington will be in good VFR. The tricky part is finding an alternate, given you can't carry full fuel.
I guess it can be used by instrument students, but it's really valuable for active instrument pilots, experienced or new ones alike. And it focuses not on regulations or procedures, but on decision making. Here's how it works. Each episode starts with a brief video which describes the situation, the airplane, the mission, the weather, and other factors which are important. Then there is a decision point, and the website suggests a handful of possible ways to proceed, and it asks you to choose one. Now, so far what I've said could be a description of the FAA knowledge test, the written, but a key difference here is that there's not just one correct answer in a situation. And that's where I see a big benefit, exactly because in real life flying, things are often not black and white, and problems can quite often be solved in multiple different ways.
What will you do? 1. Continue for Walla Walla. If you miss the approach, continue to Lewiston. 2. Continue for Walla Walla. If you miss the approach, request a clearance to Spokane Phelps Field, knowing Spokane International is there as a backup. 3. Don't try Walla Walla.
Where PilotWorkshops shines is you can listen to group discussions of a half dozen or so very experienced pilots, and each of those pilots defends the answers they have chosen based on their respective experience.
Yeah, nothing makes me feel stupider as a pilot than flying around wondering about, am I going to get there without running out of gas? And I think on that we're all agreed. I just think that going option 4, what Bruce recommends, straight to Spokane, gives you the best options of getting on the ground with the most fuel.
Keith, you're going to do the approach.
I am going to do the approach. I'm listening to what you're saying. It is making a lot of sense. So I need to make sure I'm confident. Okay, why am I disagreeing with something that sounds so sound and reasonable?
It's a great way to open your mind to approaches you may not have considered so far, and understand where these approaches can help, as well as their risks and their limitations. I give 5 stars to the IFR Mastery program from PilotWorkshops. And that's it for this video. I'll head to Florida in the Bonanza here once it's back from annual, so stay tuned for some new flying videos from the Sunshine State. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you like this video. That helps my channel. And a special thank you also, as always, to my supporters on Patreon. You all help make this channel possible. Take care, and see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.